Hello, everyone. This is a video overview of the reflective writing assignment on the annotated bibliography. By this point, you've already completed that, and now the next task is to do the reflective writing on this, but it has a couple of requirements that some people may not yet be aware of. Some students in a few of the classes have already turned this assignment in, but I think they didn't read the fine print in the instructions, and they may not have seen this eliciting AI feedback on the annotated bibliography handout. So let's go ahead and click into the assignment itself and see what it involves. And it basically involves a reflection on the process of writing the annotated bibliography. If you used AI in creating the summaries, I didn't require you to turn in the threads for that because using it to summarize something is such a low-level thing, and I allowed that for whoever wanted to do that, provided that you cited that in your annotated bibliography. So that was an option that some people probably use, some people may not have used. If you did, you would treat that in your bibliography reflection. If you did not, then you would just talk about the process such as you followed it. Your task is to format your reflection in MLA style, and it's going to be 1 to 2 pages, leaning toward 2 pages rather than the one, because you've got a lot to talk about in terms of your process that you followed. And then there's an AI, a required AI feedback component for all students. So at this point, those who have the annotated bibliography completed will upload that annotated bibliography into either Gemini or Claude to have a conversation and a feedback session on that. And I'll show you that in just a minute. And I'll show you the aim for that. And you will be turning in your AI threads for this. Normally, when we use AI, especially when it's required on assignments, I'll always collect the threads. And normally, I collect those AI chat threads via a Chrome extension that can be used on downloaded to most browsers. So it's not specific to Chrome, but it's compatible with Chromium-based browsers, which is pretty much most of them. And it's an extension called AI Archives, and I like to use that to save the threads because it actually creates a copy of the threads rather than the original one, and that, kind of is a safer thing in my view than just sharing the links from inside. There is a glitch in the extension that I've normally use for this, and so we're going to wait until that bug gets resolved. So we're just going to use the native share links inside of each platform, and this will actually make it a little easier on you. It's one less thing to remember. But let's go ahead and click on the reflection here. This is a sample reflection from a former student from 2024. So what you're going to have to do here is take a look at this and see, what she did. And in hers, she ended up using Copilot because I allowed that on this assignment at the time. And Copilot is it's a good chat bot, but I think Claude or Gemini will generally probably do a better job on this. So we'll limit to that. But you're always welcome to use others as a comparative point if you want to, provided that you provide me with the chat threads for those things and that you also treat that in your reflection. So if you wanted to use ChatGPT, it would be in addition to, not in place of Claude or Gemini. The same for Copilot on this one. So you'll use this as a model, but it will be true to your experience, and so it will be a bit different than hers because everybody's got a different issue with, or a different annotated bibliography with different needs and different things that you could talk about. So I'm going to click on the sample threads first, and then I'm going to come back to this handout right here, which is eliciting feedback on an annotated bibliography. So I'm going to start with the one that I created on Claude. Claude AI is created by Anthropic. It was started by a brother-sister team that used to work for ChatGPT, but they had a different vision for where they wanted to go with their AI platform, and now they're one of the biggest ones out there. They're in the top three. So ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude are, I would say probably the top three. Let me add Notebook LM to that, but that's a Gemini product there. So what I have here, I'm inside Claude, and one thing to be aware of if you end up choosing this one is that it has, in the free version, it has a much narrower context than the other platforms, which means you can run out of questions more quickly, especially the more documents you upload. Whenever you're working in any of the AI platforms for an assignment for me, or really just in general, except depending on what you're using it for, you always want to make sure that you're using the highest model that's available to you. And everybody does have some access to Sonnet 4.5, which is, it's the best model right now in Claude. So you want to use that if you have access to it, which you should for at least some questions, and then you may have to switch to a lower model for subsequent questions, or you can wait for that context window to reset. But keep in mind that when you're in Claude, the more things that you upload, the more it will limit the amount of questions you can ask in one session. So you should always try to leave time and expect to run out of questions in Claude and account for that so that you can come back once the window resets and finish the composition. So in this one, I only have about 6 documents here, but I'll get more mileage out of this because I have a paid account to Claude, but I uploaded a sample bibliography from a former student, and I pretended to be him. I uploaded a transcript from one of the TED Talks, one of the sources, the assignment sheet for the essay, the assignment sheet for the annotated bibliography, and I also uploaded a sample bibliographic entry for one entry, and that was the file that was available in the assignment instructions. So I've got some context here. If I wanted to, I could have, uploaded more documents, and then there are some platforms like Notebook LM where I could have uploaded all those documents up front, even in the free version. So I could, and you can upload other documents as needed. The value of giving it access to your sources is that it can provide feedback. It can draw on those. It's like having somebody who's already read those sources. They can determine the things that you've left out. They can make suggestions about those things. You don't have to accept those things, but it provides more context. But I wanted to talk about some things from the beginning. And so I'm going to let you go through and read this thread later so that you can see that it emerged as a natural conversation. It is like I am talking to a person, and that's kind of how you know you're doing something right, is if you treat it as if you're talking to a person, but recognizing that ultimately you are not, but just a natural language conversation. It requires you to have a knowledge of what it is you're supposed to do, how well you've done that. So it takes a self-awareness and critical thinking to be able to do this well. So this is, you have to go in with your brain open and on in order to get the most out of this. So I will be providing you a copy of this thread so that you can take a look at that. It's not a complete thread. I do stop it at some point, and I've got some notes to students at the bottom. If you notice up here in the top right hand corner, there is a share button. This is what you can click on to share the thread for now. Normally I use this is a thread that I normally, or a web extension that I normally use. And this is a good one right here. So it's working correctly for Gemini, but it's not currently working correctly for Claude. So just to keep it simple, I'm going to let us, for this assignment, we'll use the regular share link inside of Claude, and we'll use the regular share link inside of Gemini. Here I have another thread, and at the beginning I only have the annotated bibliography and I think this and the instructions for it. Then I started my conversation. There's a point at which I upload another file there, and I have a bit more conversation there. It's not complete like the other one, but I have put some notes for you at the bottom, and so has Gemini, and I did the same thing for Claude. So these are not full conversations here. Yours need to be full as they relate to your annotated bibliography, and you'll turn in the thread for any and all interactions that you have with AI related to this. So when you want to share a Gemini link, you'll come down here and click on the share button, and you'll click on the share conversation button, and it creates that, and then you'll have a link. So if I were to come over here and paste that, you can see it will provide a direct link to that, and this would be what you would turn into me as part of your reflective writing assignment. All right, the last thing I want to show you before I close this video out is this handout called Eliciting AI Feedback on the Annotated Bibliography. I've got some reminders at the top about general guidelines and tips, the importance of establishing context and defining exactly what you want from the feedback, and giving the AI not only a persona but a clear set of rules. And you'll see that in both of the sample threads that I've created, that I do that. I tell it, don't do anything for me. Your job is to have a conversation with me. We're going to talk about some things with regard to the annotated bibliography. And you've got to make sure that you're always in control and that you're always asking for very specific things that show an awareness of the purpose of the assignment, that show an awareness of your knowledge of the sources. So you're having a really very specific conversation with the AI regarding the annotated bibliography. You're pushing back when you need to, you're redirecting when you need to. It's like a conversation you would have with a person. The questions that I have here are examples of the kinds of things that you could ask. You can certainly use some of them to start the conversation, but at some point, I want the training wheels to come off, and I want you to, have the opportunity to, kind of think on the fly and ask questions as you go. But I recommend that you print this out and have it by your side so that you can be reminded of some things, that you may want to ask or you may want to do. And you need to be aware that moving forward, when I give these like guideline, kind of tips for eliciting feedback, I always put some sample questions on there. And some of those sample questions will be things that are universal that anybody could ask on a given assignment. And then sometimes I will pretend that I'm a student with very specific issues in my paper that I'm aware of or that I'm concerned about, and I will ask targeted questions based on those things just to emulate the kind of thing that students need to do, but with your particular questions or concerns in mind. So in some cases, the questions that I might have on something like this may not have bearing on your particular assignment, and you would skip those. But guidelines here and some sample questions. It's not meant to be a script, and it is not meant to be uploaded. So you should not take this document and upload it and say, answer all these questions for my annotated bibliography. So the point here is not to do that to circumvent the conversation. The value of this is the conversation, but only if you're thinking critically, only if you are responding and reacting to the outputs there. So this is a required component of the reflection, and you'll include a treatment of that AI interaction in the assignment here. And when you turn this in, so I'm currently not in student view, but as you know, when you're turning something in and the document editor shows up, there's a little icon or a link that looks like a link. It looks like a chain link, and you can click on that. That's where you will add your AI threads. You can add more than one if you have more than one, and then you'll include a treatment of that on your reflection. I do want to make it clear, though, that the reflection on the AI use is just one small part, or one, I guess, medium-sized part of your reflection. You should be talking about the process of creating your annotated bibliography on the whole in the reflection. So this is not all about the AI use. It's about the process of creating the annotated bibliography. Now, when you are getting feedback on the annotated bibliography, one thing you want to keep in mind is your purpose. When you look at the Gemini thread, you'll see that I kind of did two different things to illustrate that when you're asking for feedback from an AI platform on a specific assignment, you need to consider where and when you are in the process. It's possible for you to get feedback, while you're working on something to help you think on through something, and then it's also possible to get it after the fact. So since this is an assignment that's meant to be helpful for us on the outline, you'll see some useful things here in the thread once you go through it. And I'm not going to, you know, um, necessarily navigate to that place right here because you can look into the thread, but you'll see that there's a place in this thread where it gives advice of things that I need to do that will actually be helpful as a stepping stone to creating the outline. So kind of where you are in the process also dictates the kind of questions that you ask. Are you asking to get feedback to improve the execution of an assignment before it comes to me? Or are you getting feedback on it after the fact to see what other things do you need to think about or perhaps revise in your plan before you go to the next step, which for us in the coming week is creating the outline. So I just wanted to take a minute to clarify this and create a little video on it so that everybody knows the expectation here. I have moved the due date for this assignment to give us a little bit more time. And so a smart workflow for that would be to take Monday of week 8 to elicit the AI feedback, and then Tuesday of week 8 to write the reflection, unless you have time to do it all in, all on Monday and you wanted to do that. I don't recommend waiting to Tuesday to do both because you're not allowing yourself to run out of questions if you're using Claude. And and I recommend, consider, using more than one platform, and not necessarily asking the exact same questions, but it's kind of like going to two different tutors, two different teachers, two different peer reviewers. Ask different things and kind of just see the different outputs, and also practice in eliciting what it is that you want. So if it's not outputting something the way that you want, or if it's not satisfactory to you, see what you can do in terms of how you're asking for that to manipulate that so that you can do that. All right, so let me go ahead and close this out and package it so I can get it out to the class. But this should be a fun, useful, and interactive assignment, getting the feedback. And then the reflection assignments are always good because you're reflecting on the process, what worked, what didn't, the exact process. Extremely useful. And those are typically easy points to earn too, because they are, if you do them in the right spirit. All right, so that's it. That's a wrap. Y'all have a great day, and let me know if you have any questions or if you need anything.